Danse, niwago maganak, tutemak minagagano, tinimak.
Crown violates its own law and consent commitments. Pimichikamak Okimawin rejects any agreement or announcement made without our full participation. To date, there has been no engagement with our elders, women, youth, or leadership. The Crown has framed this as a done deal. That alone breaches its own legal and political commitments. The governments of Canada and Manitoba say, nothing about you without you, but this is just more of without you.
Today, Prime Minister Carney and Premier Wab Kinew announced a new cooperation agreement on environmental and impact assessment to deliver major infrastructure projects faster in Manitoba. By streamlining project reviews, Canada and Manitoba are accelerating infrastructure that will power our industries, create thousands of high-paying Canadian jobs, and expand our reach in the global markets.
Today, alongside Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier Wab Kinew, we took an important step forward with the new agreement to help get major projects built faster and strengthen our economy while delivering for Canadians. It was a pleasure to continue that conversation this evening at the Manitoba Advantage Coalition, joined by colleagues, partners, and business leaders who are deeply committed to Manitoba's growth and Canada's future. We are living through a defining moment for our country. Manitoba is ready to lead by bringing people together, unlocking opportunity, and contributing meaningfully to a stronger, more connected Canada. At the heart of this country, Manitoba is uniquely positioned to connect Canada from coast to coast to coast, linking the North and Arctic and opening pathways to global markets, including Europe. As we work to strengthen Canada's sovereignty and security, especially in the North, we know this work cannot be done alone. That is why true partnership matters. By working collaboratively with federal, provincial, territorial, and Indigenous partners and local communities, we are building a stronger and more resilient Canada together. What an amazing time this evening with the Manitoba Business Advantage Strategy. The event brought together the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, Manitoba Chamber of Commerce, Centerport, the Business Council of Manitoba, and Manitoba companies here in Ottawa to highlight the strategic importance of the Port of Churchill and its rail line to Canada's economy. Today's discussions showed how business leaders, governments, and partners can work across jurisdictions to advance a northern trade corridor that strengthens supply chains and positions Manitoba as a key gateway to global markets.
First Nations leaders call for reset on Canada-Manitoba. One project, one review cooperation agreement, Treaty One Territory, Winnipeg, Manitoba, April 15, 2026. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, AMC, and the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, Manitoba Region, are raising serious concerns following the signing of the Canada-Manitoba Cooperation Agreement on Environmental and Impact Assessment, part of the federal One Project, One Review framework intended to accelerate major project development. Grand Chief Kira Wilson and Regional Chief Willie Moore state that the agreement reflects a continuation of a bilateral government-to-government approach that excludes First Nations from decision-making processes that directly impact their lands, waters, and rights. First Nations have been clear and consistent. We must be at the table as governments, not consulted after decisions are made, said Grand Chief Kira Wilson. Our treaty relationship requires a tripartite, treaty-centered approach. Anything less falls short of the constitutional and human rights standards that Canada has committed to uphold. First Nations leadership emphasized that these concerns have been formally and repeatedly communicated to both the federal and provincial governments. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs wrote directly to Mark Carney and Wab Kinew on December 12, 2025, regarding the draft Canada-Manitoba Cooperation Agreement on Environmental and Impact Assessment. In that correspondence, AMC raised serious concerns about the exclusion of First Nations from the development of the agreement, the reliance on provincial processes that do not uphold treaty rights, and the risk that Canada would treat those processes as a substitute for its constitutional obligations, including the duty to consult and obtain free, prior, and informed consent. The letter further called on both governments to pause the finalization of the agreement and to work directly with First Nations to co-develop a treaty-centered, distinctions-based framework that recognizes First Nations jurisdiction and aligns with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. In addition, AMC provided submissions to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources, highlighting that current development frameworks, particularly in critical minerals, continue to exclude First Nations from decision-making and fail to uphold treaty and inherent rights. These are not new concerns, said Regional Chief Willie Moore. They have been clearly articulated through formal submissions and direct correspondence. Proceeding without addressing them risks deepening the gap between commitments to reconciliation and the reality experienced by First Nations. First Nations leadership also pointed to recent federal commitments that reinforce these concerns. In 2025, Parliament passed the Building Canada Act, Bill C-5, which requires that fast-track projects be evaluated on how they advance Indigenous interests and whether consultation was consistent with free, prior, and informed consent, FPIC. In 2026, Prime Minister Mark Carney pledged to the Assembly of First Nations that no major project would be designated as being in the national interest without the prior consent of First Nations. That pledge is now binding policy, and Canada cannot claim a project is in the national interest while ignoring the very consent it promised to obtain. Chief David Monias of Pimichikamak Cree Nation spoke to the implications for First Nations communities. Our nations live with the long-term impacts of these decisions. When agreements move forward without our involvement, it places our lands, waters, and way of life at risk. Respecting our jurisdiction and ensuring our consent is not optional, it is fundamental. First Nations leaders stressed that while coordination between governments may improve administrative efficiency, it cannot come at the expense of treaty rights, constitutional obligations, and First Nations jurisdiction. Leadership in our nations should always be included in the conversation. This is how you gain trust. Trust to move forward, whether development proceeds or not, should be respected and recognized. It starts with being included in discussions, added more. Canada and Manitoba have clear legal obligations under Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982 and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Those obligations require First Nations to be equal decision makers. AMC and AFN Manitoba region reiterated that the current bilateral structure risks enabling the substitution of provincial processes and reliance on outdated regulatory frameworks without the consent or full participation of affected First Nations. Reconciliation cannot coexist with unilateral decision-making, said Grand Chief Wilson. This agreement, as it stands, places Canada and Manitoba on a path that is inconsistent with their stated commitments. We are calling for an immediate reset, one that brings First Nations to the table as full partners in a tripartite process that honors treaties, respects our jurisdiction, and ensures our free, prior, and informed consent. First Nations leadership remains committed to working collaboratively with both governments to develop a path forward that supports responsible development while upholding the rights, laws, and governance of First Nations.
Consultation means being heard. Accommodation means impacts reduced. FPIC means we decide. Any agreement advanced without Pimichikamak is null and void. Canada and Manitoba, you do not have permission to touch our natural resources within our territory. Canada and Manitoba, return to the table on our terms and in our community interest, without the prior consent of First Nations. I wanted to believe that pledge, despite the fact Bill C-5 was passed without consultation either, but it seemed as this would be corrected by the pledge made by the Prime Minister. Well, an announcement was made that proved that wrong. It is rather unfortunate that with the announcement made that those standards are still not being met. No engagement with elders, women, youth, or leadership. A decision presented as final. No pathway to consent, not prior, not informed. This constitutes clear failures. 1. FPIC is not met. There has been no prior, informed, or meaningful process toward consent. 2. The duty to consult is triggered. Impacts to lands, waters, and Treaty 5 rights are evident. 3. No accommodation has occurred. There is no evidence of project changes, co-development, or mitigation shaped by our nation. Prime Minister Carney's national interest commitment cannot be invoked while ignoring the consent it requires. Our position is clear and grounded in law and treaty. The onus is on the Crown. Governments must come to Pimichikamak, not the reverse. Treaty-based relationship. Our rights under Treaty 5 are not discretionary. Governance matters. Engagement must follow Pimichikamak laws and decision-making, not a chief and council checkbox. Consultation means being heard. Accommodation means impacts reduced. FPIC means we decide. Any agreement advanced without Pimichikamak is null and void. Canada and Manitoba, you do not have permission to touch our natural resources within our territory. Canada and Manitoba, return to the table on our terms and in our community.